Hello everybody, welcome to Chess 24 and welcome to this series on the French defense, the Tarrasch variation, which is characterized by, after e4, e6, the French, d4, d5, the move knight d2. A move that I've been playing for all of my career, actually. It's one of the first moves I ever learned, one of the first lines I ever learned. I haven't ever thrown it away from my repertoire, and for good reason. It's just a very good move against the French, by far the most popular move at the moment to play. And the difference between knight d2 and the other way to support e4 with knight c3, of course, is that after knight c3, black can play bishop b4, pinning the knight, whereas after knight d2, after bishop b4 here, the simple move c3 refutes black's idea, loses a whole tempo, actually helps white strengthen the centre, and you could even claim that white is already quite a bit better after bishop b4, which is a huge mistake. So knight d2 on move 3, and it has its logic, as I've just demonstrated. You avoid the pin with bishop b4, but it also has various drawbacks, as international master John Watson, one of the best writers in the world, who is an advocate of the French defense, he said that, knight d2, it stops the development of this bishop, but also it stops the fact this queen is now not protecting d4. So it kind of, in some ways, is slightly cramping this move. That said, there's no real way for black to take advantage of this, at least not immediately. So there is a reason why it is the most played move after all. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going through all of the most important lines for this variation and giving all of you guys a decent base, foundation, and more, hopefully, for you to have success with this line. I will be covering the offbeat lines as well, from as early as move 3. Black does have quite a large range of ideas and moves in this position. And of course, what I'll do is, as I do with all of my opening series, I'll start with the rarest lines and end up at the main lines and give you my conclusions. But essentially, if you look at how the likes of Adams has done over the years, Karpov had great success with this as well, you will see that this is really a very, very solid, decent opening that you should make part of your repertoire if you've been struggling against the French. So with that said, sit back, get your pens out, get your mental notepad out, because we're going to be going through all of the lines, and remember to check out everything else we have here on Chess 24. So after knight d2, we reach the starting position of the French Tarrasch, and as I like to do, I like to discuss the more unusual or offbeat variations first. And so that's what I'm going to do in this clip. Now, clearly, a lot of these lines are very rare for a reason. A lot of them give white quite simply a very comfortable game. So I wouldn't be too worried about facing any of the moves you might see here. I actually don't even believe I've faced any of them in my career, because they're not serious options for black in terms of trying to equalize. So let's go through them. And after knight d2, the first slightly offbeat move I'd like to discuss is the move bishop b4. Well, actually, we mentioned in the introduction, I'm not going to dwell on this, but bishop b4 is not only an offbeat move, it's simply a very bad one, because white, unlike in the winner or with 3 knight c3, you can't block this pin. You can now, and after c3, black has wasted a full move, so he can't really play bishop b4, so we won't dwell on that. Let's go for the other moves then. we can start here with the move b6. A move which, according to Watson, is quite a logical move, and it is, because black, now that white is not really pressurizing in the center with his knight on c3, can afford to make this move and potentially try and exchange bishops off via bishop a6 at some point, or even put the bishop on b7. So some ideas to this move, not completely nonsensical at all. And here there are a few ways for white to play, both of which I believe give him a very good game. I think white should play knight gf3 here, and black normally responds with the move knight to f6. If you play bishop a6 straight away, I think the problem is that white can now take, knight takes, and play the move pawn to c4 with a sneaky little queen a4 check in the pipeline. And the problem that black has here is that he's taking a few too many liberties. Also, his light squares around here, c6 for example, I'm eyeing that guy up, feels just a bit loose to me. Not only that, but white is ready to castle and blow open the center with a c takes d5, e takes d5 kind of combo, and the e-file is going to be very useful. So I just don't believe that black can play bishop a6 in this particular position. I think he should play knight f6. And here is where white has a couple of options, both of which are very interesting, both of which are very playable, I believe. One is to play the move pawn to e5, which we see a lot, and after knight d7 to actually play the move pawn to c4, trying to open up the position given that black has neglected a bit of development on the king's side. And here, well, black has two main replies. He can either take on c4 or play bishop b7. If he plays bishop b7, I think you can, and by the way, these lines almost always transpose, you can take on d5. The bishop has to take. The problem with e takes d5 is that now that the bishop has departed this diagonal, white has really got e6 ideas in a lot of positions, and those are potentially very dangerous for black. Here even just bishop d3, bishop e7 castles, and black's bishop, it's passive on b7. It doesn't really belong there, so I don't quite believe that. So I think you have to take back on d5 with the bishop. And now black has found a kind of outpost there, a very decent one. Were he able to maneuver his knights there, he would actually be absolutely fine. But in this position, he's just a bit slow. So after this, I think white can play bishop c4, threatening to take on c4. And now when black moves back to b7, it doesn't make any sense to take on c4, because now after knight takes c4, d5 is a really serious threat. So you can't really do that. I think you should go back to b7. But now just the move queen e2 looks very comfortable for white. This knight on d7 is being played out the game by these white pawns on d4 and e5. This black knight on b8 doesn't really have a home either. And white's just ready to go. Knight e4, castles, rook d1, and he's got a great space advantage in a very pleasant position. So that's one way to play against it. The other way is actually that after knight f6 on move 3, on move 4 I should say, you can take on d5, no problems at all. And here after pawn takes d5, which looks the most logical, you can jump into e5 with knight e5, and this is a direct attempt to refute black's play with b6, because white may very well be threatening bishop b5 check. For example, if bishop e7, bishop b5 check would then force black to concede the bishop pair with bishop d7, which is not ideal, especially now that you've weakened the light squares with b6. The point is a move like knight d7 would run into the disastrous knight c6, ending the game immediately. So knight e5 is actually a cute little idea here, and after the move c6, well, again, if you go bishop b7 with black, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flick in a check, bishop b5 check, and I want to actually provoke c6 to come back to d3. This idea of provoking the move c6 is actually seen in a lot of lines, especially in other openings, in fact, when the bishop is fianchetto. The point is it now exerts less control over the diagonal, so moves like knight e4 become more difficult, and actually just makes his bishop more passive. So it's a good provocative move there to provoke the c6 push. And White is doing absolutely fine here. He's going to play knight df3, castles. He's got a great outpost. He's just a bit better. In fact, in the game that I'd like to show you in this line with knight e5 c6, Sutovsky-Sochko from Rijeka 2010, after knight e5 c6, something very similar happened. The difference being that now the black bishop is on c8. But that said, similar kind of ideas. White played bishop d3, bishop e7, castles, rook fe1, c5. So we got something similar. And actually, rather than knight df3 here, White has got a few interesting moves. He can actually take this pawn on c5. That's an interesting move. And the point is that after, let's say he plays, well, if bishop takes c5, clearly this all looks a bit funny for black, playing b6, and then bishop takes c5, left himself with an IQP here on d5. Doesn't look that healthy for him at all. Just the move knight b3, and White's already better. He's got great outposts for his pieces, great bind on the dark square. So you can play b takes c5, but now the move c4 is very interesting. Again, trying to challenge in the center here, and after d4, well, that would be a huge blunder, because now queen f3 would be very embarrassing for black. That's one way of playing. Also, you can play like Sutovsky did and play queen f3 straight away. Very, very direct chess. Perhaps teeing up c4. And actually, after bishop b7, as played by Sochko, well, now that gave White the opportunity of playing the very aggressive, very direct move queen h3. It wouldn't surprise you to know that Sutovsky won this game. He is one of the most talented attacking players in the world. And with these guys lined up down here, I wouldn't like to be black at all. So, two ways of playing against b6, but both seem to secure White a very pleasant game. All right. What else have we got? Well, we've got the move, the slightly odd-looking move, bishop d7, which actually isn't a bad move, because after knight f3 and now d takes e4, knight takes e4, bishop c6, this actually transposes to a well-known variation called the Fort Knox variation, which I will discuss in this series. So check out that clip for more. So bishop d7 on move 3 isn't actually a bad move at all. Bishop e7 does have its own chapter as well, so remember to check him out as well. And let's check out some other moves here. We've got the move pawn to f5. It's a move I think I might have played against in Blitz, but it's simply a move I refuse to believe in. Because after takes, well, we have a position where there is a gaping hole on e5 that our knights are perfectly positioned to take advantage of. Also, black has weakened his king side considerably with this kind of f-pawn advance, and his bishop is very passive on c8. So a sample line could run bishop d3, knight f6, and now knight df3, because also this knight belongs on e5, but this one can all come to f4, and that feels like they're working very well together. So bishop d6, knight e2, castles, c6, and now just a move. You've got a few ideas here with White. Much like in Stonewall structures, Stonewall Dutch structures, if White can exchange dark squared bishops to leave black with the light squared bishop is a good idea. So the move bishop f4 is absolutely reasonable here. And let's say black plays b5 to stop any c4 break, just c3, queen c7, takes, and a4. This was seen in Bezgodov, Abkayev from Khanty-Mansiysk 2013, and White is already somewhat better. This b5 push has been punished by a4, and White is just much better here. Agpayev, I should say, is actually a bit of a specialist in this f5 variation, perhaps the highest rated player who's played it, but his results haven't actually been that good, and not for any reason either. So bishop f4 is an idea after c6, but there's also the move c4. I think this could be very, very dangerous for black. It's a move that our little machine friend, came up with. And the point is that if you take this pawn off on c4, which is black, for him it's his ideal move because he wants to secure an outpost for d5. The point is that now after bishop takes c4, actually he's in a lot of trouble. If he plays knight d5 here, the move queen to b3 or even knight to f4 is very strong, and white is winning material here. For example, you can't go bishop e6 because of queen takes b7, so you would have to play king h8. But after takes, you can play the move bishop f4, and white is playing with the knights, and white is just much, much better already because, well, if you take knight takes, clearly that's going to be dropping material. And if you try something like queen c7, as we saw, it's an idea in the other variation I demonstrated, now you can play a move like g3 or even bishop takes d6 straight away and knight c3. And white's just much better. Black's got these gaping holes. White's got no weaknesses, has to be better. So c4 is actually a very, very good move here. Novelty. And if he goes king h8 rather than blocking on d5, well, now black has got a big problem because knight to f4 is very, very strong for white. White is coming in perhaps on e6. He's got ideas with knight e5, knight g5. He's got all kinds of mating pattern ideas against the king, and it's just very unpleasant. So f5 on move 3, played very, very seldomly and for a very good reason, in my opinion. Okay, what else have we got then? We've got the move g6, which is actually not a silly move at all. Black looks to erect a setup with bishop e7, bishop g7 and knight e7. And with the knight on d2, this kind of makes sense because black is going to be pressurizing the center. However, after knight f3, bishop g7, bishop d3, and now, depending on where black puts the knight, let's say he puts it on f6, here you can play e5, and if knight d7, the move h4 is a very, very good reply. White is threatening to play h5, sometimes h6, but more often than not he wants to exchange on g6, and this exchange means that in the future there are all kinds of sacrificial possibilities on e6 or on f7 with the knight, which would ruin black's cover, and white often crashes through. It's a very, very standard idea. So h4 is actually a nice move here, and if black plays h6 with the idea of meeting h5 with g5, that actually makes a lot of sense for him. Closing those lines is good for black. So I don't like h5 here. Well, white has got a really interesting couple of moves here. He can play the move pawn to b4, which is taking advantage of the fact that black has now put his bishop on g7. And getting this c5 break in is suddenly very difficult. And if you go a5 here with black, you can just play b5. And suddenly, c5 can be met by the move c3, and the big difference is that this pawn now completely dominates this knight, so there's no way for black to attack the center. Moreover, white's threatening to come a4, bishop a3, something like that. So b4 is actually a super interesting move here. Also, the move c4 can't be discounted, and were black to play c5, well, that would run into a lot of trouble here because now after cd5, ed5, we see a problem with h6. It weakens the structure. This pawn on g6 becomes very weak, and the move e6 looks very, very difficult to deal with. White is just crashing through here. So, for example, if queen e7, castles, fe6, bishop g6 check, well, white must be better. He's depriving black of any castling rights. He's got castled himself. He just must be better here. So c4 is actually really interesting. And if you take on c4, you can play knight takes c4. And again, if knight c6, white has got this cute little idea of bishop e4, centralizing that bishop. Beautiful bishop on e4. Look how many diagonals it's controlling and patrolling, if I can call it that. And now after knight b6, the cutest move in the position, knight to e3, avoiding the exchange, controlling this d5 square, always threatening d5 yourself. And I think white's a tiny bit better here. Space advantage, got d4 under control, must be a bit better. So there's a couple of ways of playing against g6. Again, these are certainly b4 I've never seen in a game. They're novel ideas and require further testing, so give them a go in your own games. Apart from those moves, well, the move knight e7 is also a pretty standard move. I say standard in as much as it's been seen before. But again here, after knight f3, and if black tries to play knight g6, I think white can play with h4 here, trying to kick this knight away. And after h5, g3, white has got a typical way of playing against a g6 or b6 knight. You put your pawn on g3 and h4 to restrict its movement. And although this might not be too bad for black at all, white's going to be comfortable. So, for example, if he takes on e4, you can play knight e4, and if bishop e7, you can play either with the fianchetto, or you can even put your bishop on, for example, c4, and it just looks very pleasant for white. So knight e7 again, a move you're not really going to see. Knight f3 here, even the move c3 must be absolutely fine. And black's got to prove that this little knight maneuver is any good. The moves, the flank pawn moves, the moves h6, which is a very, very valid move indeed, and a6 will be discussed separately. And these moves, as Watson has said, are given that knight d2 kind of doesn't threaten anything for white. It protects his pawn on e4, but doesn't actually threaten anything, makes these moves justifiable. And h6 and a6 both are very useful moves. The move h6, controlling the g5 square, perhaps preparing g5 in some lines, as we'll see, is very, very decent. And with a6 again, the a6 move controlling b5, perhaps allowing black to expand on the queen side with b5, is also very, very valid. So remember to check out those chapters for these very decent moves, as well as bishop e7, which is the other third move alternative or offbeat move. I should mention, naturally, that the main lines with knight f6, with c5, and with d takes e4 all also have their own chapters. But for the moment, I thought I'd give you a quick little overview of those other slightly pesky moves that we can sometimes encounter on move 3, but it's nothing for us to worry about with white. We can get a very comfortable position in a various number of in a number of ways, as we've seen in the clip. So good luck with utilising those in your own games. You'll see them very rarely, but it's worth knowing what to do just in case.